I asked someone on the street for directions to 6th Avenue and made my way towards Union Square. When I arrived, I couldn't help but notice all the tents that were dominating the square. On Saturdays, Union Square becomes one big farmer's market. I don't know where these people come from to make this happen, but it's a really cool thing they do. I made my way to Circuit City. AJ wasn't there, and my phone battery was dead. He's always fashionably late, so I had time to kill. Once inside, I sparked up conversation with one of the sales associates. I told him I had just returned from D.C. and that I had a website with pictures on it and blogs and told him meter shame. He went from hospitality to fraternity in an instant. I asked him if he minded plugging my phone in, and he happily obliged. I wrote the website URL on a piece of paper and told him to check it out. I was in the cell phone section of the store and asked him what new phones were out. We were at for a minute or two, and he led me to where some of the newer PDAs were at. I started playing with the buttons, and before I knew it, AJ arrived. About AJ. AJ was one of my best friends when I was at Exeter, but somewhere along the way I promoted him to the rank of brother, a title which he has held on to ever since. He has a lofty distinction of being the first person to receive that promotion. I really wished he had gone to D.C., and I remembered talking to him on the phone and him saying that I represent him wherever I go. But he stole that line from the academy. We went outside. I asked him if he knew where the church was. He said he didn't. I told him to call Sarah, who was one of the class officers, and the one who came up with the idea of volunteering in that church to begin with. He called her, and she gave him directions. We started making our way toward the church, chatting it up. AJ produced a plastic bag of grapes from his coat pocket. I took off, running like a madman, yelling, "Don't throw them at me." What's the reason for this ridiculous outburst of behavior? Well, I'll tell you. One day in Elm Street Dining Hall in Exeter, New Hampshire, we got in this ridiculous food fight with grapes that totally spiraled out of control. Thinking back now, let me apologize to the good people who work in facilities management for the mess we made that they had to clean up. We couldn't find the church from the direction Sarah gave us at first. We did find the HGI USA building, which is a Buddhist association for peace, culture, and education. Here's a direct quote from the pamphlet I picked up. Whether you chant the Buddha's name, recite the sutra, or merely offer flowers and incense, all your virtuous acts will implant benefits and roots of goodness in your life. With this conviction, you should strive in faith. The Writings of Nichiren, Daishonin, Volume 1, page 4. I knew this was a place I'd have to return to later, but the business at hand was finding this church. We kept searching around and eventually arrived at the Church of St. Francis Xavier. The church was locked, and we decided we'd have to come back or call them to find out the information we needed. I told AJ to call Sarah back to see if the name of this church rang a bell. He called her and said that this was the one. AJ said he was hungry and asked if I'd eaten anything. I said I had, but I could get some coffee or something. We went into the first diner we saw and grabbed a table. We ate and had good conversation. We decided we'd go to Housing Works bookstore via the Broadway Lafayette train station. We paid for our food and headed to the nearest subway station at 14th and 7th. E-train was running on the F and V line, but we got there all the same. As we were walking, Jay was talking about this great idea for a 3-act play he's working on. I won't spoil it, but the premise is genius. As we are walking, a lady in front of us slips and falls down. AJ, 2 other gentlemen, and I, on instinct, formed a perimeter around her. We all asked if she was all right and helped her to her feet. What's happening in New Yorkers? We got to the bookstore, and I knew when I first went into this place that it was magical. I love books. And a good bookstore with musty old volumes and some decent places to sit is an oasis for my weary soul. The way the bookstore works is basically people donate books and or their time to work in the store. They had a sign-up sheet for volunteers that I put my name and contact information on. All the profit goes towards care for homeless people that have HIV or AIDS. It's a great cause, and they have some great volumes. I picked up a book by Spencer, a massive hardcover of Chaucer, another hardcover of plays by Swinburne, a book on etiquette by Vanderbilt, and a book on the collected writings of Thucydides, all for less than $6. I told AJ when we got in there I had a half a mind to lock the door and keep the hoard for ourselves. I started grabbing the books I wanted, and there was a candid moment of me dropping all these books on the ground in my lust for knowledge. AJ went to the front and grabbed me a basket. I made my way to an open table and started thumbing through the pages. Then I realized this would be a good place to charge my phone. I found an outlet next to a man and woman talking at a circular table. I said I needed to use an outlet and asked if they minded if I sat down. They said they didn't. I plugged the phone in, opened up the Chaucer, and tried not to listen in. But I can't help chiming in when two people next to me are having a conversation about aesthetics or art or philosophy. The conversation was about all these things and more. I couldn't help chiming in with my comments. It's the spirit of the Harkness table in me, and in my defense, I was sitting at a round table after all. My comments became increasingly regular until I was finally engaged in the conversation. AJ came up and said he had to go pick up a tuxedo. I gave him £1 and told him I'd holla. I told my table of philosophers about my trip to D.C., the website, and sort of my statement of purpose that had been impressed upon me from the trip. They responded pretty favorably to my rants, which pleased me. I had passed the Pepsi challenge on my newfound ideas. After a while, they got up to leave. I thanked them for letting me sit down. They told me they were glad I did. Diamond.